this legislature collectively decides that legislating hate against children is our priority, then I am going to make it painful for everyone.
One Nebraska senator saw through the BS and stood up for the trans community. This video is via MSNBC.
I've made it clear that we can agree to disagree and still love each other and still move forward, unless the root of our disagreement is in my right to exist. And that's what you're doing with this legislation.
State Representative Ian Mackey of Missouri joined the fight.
Those of you who would pass this bill into the full House claim to know the mind of God. There are more genders than you are aware of. There are more biological sex than you are aware of. You do not know the mind of God.
Chris Addig, the father of a trans son, spoke out against Arkansas lawmakers. He was arrested for it. As we have said many times over, sports reflect the times of society. This is Sebastian Coe, president of the International Association of Athletics Federations.
A decisive action to protect the female category in our sport, and to do so by restricting the participation of transgender and DSD athletes.
He gave the following statement, which was an incredibly harsh ruling for those who simply wish to compete. And this rhetoric sounded eerily similar to this. Former President Donald Trump, who intentionally mislabeled trans athletes, stirring up more hatred and bigotry than what is needed, putting a target on the backs of our fellow citizens. Stephanie Holland of The Root would write, in part, one of the most influential organizations in sports made a controversial decision on allowing trans women in competitions, and frankly, it's a stupid, short-sighted one. The ban is going to take place March 31st, which means this is pretty much going to be done. Coe stressed he would be setting up a group to consult with trans athletes and review any fresh research that emerged. He would basically say, this is the decision we are making right now. This is not something that could be long-term. It's not a no forever, is essentially what he said. He would add, there are currently no trans athletes competing internationally. No athletic-specific evidence of the impacts these athletes have on the fairness of female competitors, World Athletics would state in a statement. The council decided to prioritize fairness and integrity of the female competition before inclusion. I go back to, they don't have evidence, so they're just reacting. More. Stonewall labeled it disappointing. It's an LGBTQ plus rights org. Quote, it's disappointing to see World Athletics announce a unilateral ban on trans women in track and field. Their own statement recognizes there are no trans women competing at an international level. Exactly. No specific evidence to justify the ban. Exactly. Yet this follows what we have seen in right-wing politics throughout the world. To disenfranchise, to mislabel, to put blame on the trans community when it is not needed at any level, no matter one's position. On top of this, they are following FINA, the FINA, or the Swimming World's governing body, who did the same. We are beyond devastated to see World Athletics succumbing to political pressure instead of core principles of inclusion, fairness, and non-discrimination for trans athletes and athletes with intersex variations, said Hudson Taylor of Athlete Ally. Taylor would add that the new regulations do not do anything to the threats to women's sports. And if you are seeing this on your screen, all of those should take priority over what Sebastian Coe and company are doing. Coe said that athletes with a DSD would have to lower their T levels for 6 months, which basically means they're going to miss the World Championships in Budapest. Canadian cyclist Kristen Worley told The Independent, what's happening is the most vulnerable are being excluded from sport for political reasons, not based on science and research. This has effects, just not at the international levels, but consequently over communities across the globe. So this is a purely political move by Co and World Athletics to deal with the right-wing issues, political relationships, and obviously potential sponsors that are funding World Athletics. Ricky Coughlin, one of Australia's first trans athletes in running, would say, and label it the forces of hate. And Ricky, I hear you. Via Holland wants more of the root. So without any evidence that it needed to be done, World Athletics handed all these people a reason for discrimination. Conservatives will absolutely use this as proof that they need to keep trans youth out of sports. 1,000%. I reiterate, sports reflects the times. It reflects the current times. And we are seeing this once again with the discriminatory practices of those who are in positions of power that are supposed to be about fairness, equality. We are not seeing that. They do not cite studies. There are no trans women competing, and yet they are getting ahead of it instead of addressing the real issues that are hurting women's athletics. It's sad, it's devastating, and yet because of what we have seen around the world with opportunists taking advantage of these situations to disenfranchise a set group of people, honestly, it's unsurprising. And that's probably what pisses me off the most, is how unsurprising it is. So here we are, and we await to see when this position will be revoked and changed. Until then, this is the hand that we're dealt, though we do not accept it.